Well, let's talk to a Conservative MP now who knows all about this. He's also chairman of the all-party parliamentary group on Russia, so I'm going to ask him about that as well. That is Bob Seely, MP. Thank you for joining us this morning, Bob. How are you doing?
Sorry, say again, Peter?
I just said you're very welcome to the programme. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, good morning. Sorry, I was chatting to your producer in the other ear. Hi, good morning to
you're too popular, Bob. Everybody wants a piece of you. Tell me what you make, first of all, of Prigozhin and what is happening here. Do we know he's really dead? Are you convinced by the heartfelt sympathy from President Putin saying that he has lost a talented man who made serious mistakes, presumably getting in Putin's way was one of them?
He's definitely dead. By the way, Peter, do you want to discuss the thing that you were talking about earlier about pay and IPSA?
Yeah, I'll come to that, or we can do it now if you want to.
Do you want to do it now? Get it out of the way.
Go for it.
Okay, I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for it. I wasn't aware it was happening. I don't vote on my pay. I'm not really interested in it because I get told what it is. This has been decided by IPSA, which is an independent body, so it's not like MPs have a choice in this. If you're asking me to the previous caller who wants us all to be wiped out, personally, I don't think people resigning should be getting a payout, but this is an independent body. I'm afraid to say we don't get to vote on it unless somebody tells me that we do. I'm frankly more concerned about dealing with my constituency casework. So I'm not particularly happy about this either because it just shows us in the bad light. And despite the fact it's an independent body, everyone's going to blame us for it.
Of course they're going to blame you for it.
It really winds me up, frankly. But if you're asking me, if you lose an election, fair enough, because you have adjustment costs, etc., etc. And everyone says, you know, if you leave your career after 5 or 10 years, it can be difficult to get back into it, retrain. So there is a commitment there. But no, if you choose to resign, you shouldn't be getting a payout. But sorry, I don't know why IPSA has made this decision.
It does seem bizarre, especially when we're in a situation, Bob, where we have lots of public sector workers asking for more pay. But IPSA, as you say, an independent body, it's not your decision, says that MPs standing down get this money.
Lots of public sector workers are getting more pay. But, you know, clearly, as your anger from your previous colleague, from your previous caller says, it's really unhelpful if we're trying to get people to have sort of moderated pay settlements in line with inflation. The MP's pay settlement from IPSA, if I understand, is actually well below inflation. I think it was about 4.5%, which is below the public sector average rise, I'm pretty sure, and below the private sector rise as well, well below it. Not quite half, but I think the average public sector rise is, what, 7.8%? I think we got 4.5%. I'm guessing because I didn't, you know, I haven't really looked at the figures.
Once again, Bob, it all comes back to the thick of it, because in the thick of it, there's an MP who is complaining about his salary, and Malcolm Tucker says to him, the public wants you to live in a cave and eat grass.
Yes, okay. I've started baking my own bread, but I haven't quite got around to eating grass.
Okay, you'll get there. You'll get there. It's only a matter of time. Right. Let me ask you about Prigozhin as chairman of the all-party parliamentary group on Russia. So you think he's definitely dead? Who did it?
You don't kill somebody of this power and seniority in Russia without getting the say-so from the very top. I'm reading some theories that this was done by the defense minister, Shoigu. He's not going to do it off his own bat. I'm sorry. The nod on this has got to come from Putin, and maybe even very much, kept within the presidential administration. So this has only come from one place, and I think any conspiracy conversations to the contrary are completely wide of the mark. He was a marked man, more or less, although, with the use of hindsight, we can all say, well, we all saw it coming. Obviously, Prigozhin didn't and thought he'd got to deal with Putin to survive. That has turned out to be a very false dawn for Mr. Prigozhin.
It is incredibly murky, though, and as someone who follows Russia affairs very, very closely, it must be very difficult to know exactly what's going on because there is so much claim, counter-claim, alliances that we don't know about, all sorts of things happening behind the scenes. Even the coup that Wagner was putting forward, there was much more to that than met the eye.
Yeah, and I think that there are lots of conspiracies, but there's also the sort of heat of the moment stuff. I think Prigozhin led his March for Justice, as he called it, his semi-coup. I think because mentally something snapped in him. It may be that the amount of people in his unit that were dying, and he was very happy to send lots of people to their death for his own personal gain. So he was a truly awful human being. So we shouldn't underestimate how unpleasant he was. But at the same time, I just think that he made a massive, massive error of judgment by becoming increasingly angry and trying to his personal battles with the defense minister, a man called Shoigu, and indeed the chief of the staff, a man called General Gerasimov, I think got the better of his judgment. And I just think he sort of flipped a lid, to put it bluntly, made a colossal error of judgment by turning on Moscow, and then blinked first, effectively.
With
and
this,
I think, yeah.
No, I was just wondering what you think the future now for the Wagner Group is. I mean, they've been told they'll keep the contracts with the Russian army and so on, but the leadership and so on, have they just sort of cut the head off this to
Yes.
That's what you think Putin's been doing?
Without Utkin, without the main military man, a neo-Nazi called Utkin, and without Prigozhin's contacts, Wagner will be absorbed. And even as a few weeks ago, there were plans to start to absorb Wagner's Africa mercenary operations, bring it much closely within the Russian military intelligence, the GRU, and under the control of the Kremlin. So these groups will still exist, but Wagner specifically is now going to be absorbed. I think there's an assassination risk to Putin, that there are people in Wagner who killed a lot of people, who are very angry about what's happened, who follow Prigozhin and Utkin. But I think, apart from that, I think Wagner's days as any kind of independent mercenary group are very much numbered, and it'll be absorbed within various factions around Putin. Putin's back weakened by all this, but actually this is by assassinating Prigozhin very bluntly and very obviously and very publicly. He's very, very obviously telling other people in Russia, if you want to come against me, I'll kill you.
Yeah. One other big political story, which I know you know a lot about as the MP for the Isle of Wight, is immigration. Rishi Sunak says the £4 billion we're spending every year is far too much. I agree with him. And the fact that the processing just isn't happening. We've had two very strong-willed, very tough-talking Home Secretaries. We've had Priti Patel, very briefly, Grant Shapps, but Priti Patel and Suella Braverman are the ones that I want to talk about. They just don't seem to be, forgive the phrase, but turning the ship on this.
Yeah, let's give it some more time. This is taking much longer. Everything that we're trying to do is taking much longer than it should. And clearly, we don't like that any more than folks listening.
So is Rishi Sunak going to run out of time because he'll have to call an election at some point?
No, because I think hopefully we will get I think there will be movement towards September, and there will certainly be more movement on this next year. We are lessening the numbers, but we are not yet securing our borders. I would say, Peter, with an election upcoming, there is no problem that is not going to be made worse by a Labour government. But saying they're worse than us is not good enough. We have to deliver more on our record. And I can assure your listeners and viewers, that is what we are going to be doing. Well, what we're doing already, but come September, that is what we are going to be relentlessly focused on once recess finishes and we're back in Parliament.
One more story around this morning I'm sure you'll welcome is the energy price cap has been lowered. The average family, £150 less on their bills. This is some progress, I suppose, but bills still very high and a lot higher than 2019.
Yeah, exactly. I'm afraid to say this is the price we're paying for, firstly, inflation. The inflation's caused by the 400 billion we spent on COVID, and it's important that we remember that actually the lockdown has now come with massive costs that we're now paying. It's caused by the Ukraine war and the spike in energy prices. And to be honest, it's caused by long-term failure of politicians in this country, from all political parties, to plan more energy security. When Labour came in 97, they said, we're not building any nuclear power stations. It takes 15 to 20 years to get a nuclear power station online.
Nick Clegg didn't want them either when he was Deputy Prime Minister.
Exactly. And then 10 years ago, we didn't take the decision to frack. I know fracking is very unpopular and a lot of people would be against it. But the reason why we now have high energy prices and we're exporting our industry to China, which is now building 2 coal-fired power stations, super dirty energy production a week to cope with our and other people's manufacturers, is because we didn't plan ahead, and we should be doing that. We're now doing that, but it should have been done a decade, 15 years ago.
Bob, thank you very, very much indeed. That's Bob Seeley there. He's a Conservative MP for the Isle of Wight. He's also chairman of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Russia and a member of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. So